It is time for our final show of the week. My personal favorite show
Thank
of the week.
God.
It is the One Soccer Roundtable with Adam Jenkins, Oliver Platt, Gareth Wheeler, and KenPL.ca's Charlie O'Connor Clark. A roundtable show that is driven by you, our viewers. So get your questions and comments in the chat. We will get to as many of them as we can over the course of the next 60 minutes. Plenty to talk about today, including the Canadian men's national team. Their sold-out crowd recently announced against Jamaica coming up very, very soon. Already a comment from Bone6000. Let's do it, boys. Jamaica game sold out. I got my overpriced tickets, so I'm happy. I'm not going to comment on the cost. There's no such thing as overpriced when it comes to Canada soccer. But Bone,
it's an historic game, so whatever you paid, it's probably worthwhile.
You won't regret it.
Glad to see you got your ticket. That's the number one thing, Bone. And we got lots of other things to talk about as well. Major League Soccer, of course, the Canadian women's U20 side, and some CPL action as well. My personal favorite part of the show, which will be coming up a little bit later, but I'll ask Ollie to show the camera his present. I promised him a gift. I have sent him a gift. It is in this box. He has not opened it yet. So we're going to do that.
I can't believe I've agreed to this.
Halfway through the show. He genuinely has no idea.
Adam, how come Charlie and I didn't get gifts from you?
What is this?
Favoritism?
I strongly doubt you want one, Gareth.
Well, yeah, that's a great point. Let's reevaluate that request wheels after Ollie opens it and shows everyone
perfect.
Present. Let's start with BMO Field, the aforementioned sold-out crowd. What is your advice, Gareth Wheeler, to any supporters going that want to have a great experience but couldn't get their tickets? How can they still enjoy this monumental match against Jamaica?
I'm hearing some rumors that there could be some watch parties in the works. I'm just hearing rumors around the city of Toronto. I remember I did that call out. I'm gonna have to bring that back up. Like, what was that, last month, when I'm saying get ready for it, 24th, 27th. I want to see this country go off like it's never happened before. Like we see in Toronto when Italy goes on and wins Euro, or Portugal wins a big game. Like, this is what it's about. Now it's time to go have your own Canadian celebrations. Contact your local supporters club, contact your local pubs, have your parties. It's time to celebrate.
Charlie, what about you? What advice would you give to everyone with the watch parties and just making this an occasion that it deserves to be?
Yeah, well, it will be a huge party, right? Whether you're in Toronto or anywhere else in the country or anywhere else around the world, it should be a pretty big party among soccer fans. If you're in Toronto and you didn't manage to get a ticket, I'm sure that the festivities won't end at the final whistle. If you're in Liberty Village or something, you go hang out, I'm sure all the bars will be pretty packed, as they tend to be after a big game at BMO Field. So I don't think you'll be wanting for access and availability of parties and celebrations to be had, whether Canada's already clinched by that game or whether that is the night that they do it. It should be a lot of fun just across the city that day.
Book off Monday right now. That should be the recommendation, because it's an afternoon game, and keep that going into late Sunday night. That's what I suggest. And book off Friday as well. Thursday, Friday, Saturday, Sunday, Monday. Just take some time and enjoy
your jobs
soccer.
And just become a full-time supporter and consume all of the One Soccer content.
Tell them that Wheels told you it's okay.
That's right.
Ollie, you know some teams like hand out those permission slips.
Yeah,
like for
fake,
certain
doctor's notes. Yeah.
We should have our own One Soccer permission slip to go on.
Dr. Hot Wheels gives you permission to take the day off work.
PhD.
Our first question of the day, I'll give it to you, Ollie, since I didn't get your opinions on the festivities. This is from Ramez F, who asks, what role will Ike Ugbo play in the upcoming World Cup qualifying window?
Maybe a little bit more of a prominent one than he has done so far, just because I think, obviously we're still waiting for Iowa Canola to get back. Lucas Cavallini is still kind of getting into form. I'm sure I think he'll be part of the squads, but he's not quite hit, the levels that we know we've seen from him in the past yet. So Ugbo is the guy past David and Larin, particularly if Alphonso Davies isn't there to potentially play up front as well. So over another 3-game window, potentially with the opportunity. I know we've said before that we don't think the team is going to rotate too much and they're going to go, all out until the end of this World Cup qualifying process. But I think that there might be the opportunity for Ugbo to get at least more minutes off the bench, if not a start at some point during this window. So I think we'll probably see the most of him that we've seen since he made that commitment to Canada.
Charlie, we've been wondering for a while what, if any, changes John Herdman might make to the lineup. We don't expect drastic changes, but this seems like an opportunity to give players like Ugbo, who have been brought in but haven't been asked to feature due to the players in front of them, a chance to show the country what they can do heading into Qatar.
Yeah, I think there will be more minutes available in this window than there have been in some recent ones, especially maybe in that third Panama game, depending on how the other two go. But as Ollie said, I don't think there's going to be much, certainly no experimentation, not a lot of just giving players minutes for the sake of giving them minutes. There will be, guys that will get that opportunity maybe 10, 20, even 30 minutes at the end of a game or something like that, that will maybe get that chance to have a bit of a run on the pitch, show John Herdman what they can do, because there are players that are still trying to make a case to be in that World Cup squad, right? And the best way you can make that decision is based on what you've seen from them in an actual Canada jersey. So there will be more minutes available, but I still wouldn't expect massive rotation or, huge changes to the lineup or the way that John Herdman's doing things.
He's playing right now. That's good news. At a good level in France as well, right? So he's played the last 4 or 5 games. So I think he will be a player that will play a more prominent role this window.
Gareth, next question will go to you. It comes from Vincent Alvarado. Hello, fellas. Hello, Vincent. Quick question. Any update on some injuries? Sounds like Atiba could be hurt, ? Along with Osorio being in doubt for Toronto FC this weekend, ? Anything to worry about Canada's midfield, Gareth?
I think that I think there'll be limited changes to the squad. And obviously Atiba has some restrictions on him anyways. Look, beyond those two, Samuel Piet's been hurt. He hasn't played at all. So I can't see him playing a role in this Canada team. They're going to have to bring in another central midfield player or players for this window. Now that begs the question, who could that player be? I know that Harry Payton's been in camp. Of course, Liam Fraser, a good old reliable. I'm thinking a little bit outside the box here, guys. Like when you're looking at Canadian midfield players who might offer something a little bit different, who might that player be? And if I'm John Herdman right now, I'm really considering picking up the phone and calling CF Montreal and Ismail Kone. He's been good and he's virtually come out of nowhere, right? But he's big, he's strong. It's a profile of player in the midfield that Canada simply doesn't have. I just wonder if that could be maybe one of the players that Herdman might consider calling up, because I think that will be the area where they might have to dip in and bring in maybe a player or two that haven't been with the men's national team so far. You're good up top. You're good in wide areas. Center backs are fit and they're playing, but it's in the midfield. Kone's a guy for me. I don't know. He's 19. You want to cap tie him early? He looks like an absolute beast in the middle of the park. I would absolutely consider that. I don't know about you guys.
And the other thing quickly in the midfield is that Stefan Eustáquio hasn't been playing a whole lot recently either, which is another bit of a concern. I don't know.
Definitely something to keep in mind. Ollie?
Yeah, I tend to think that Eustáquio is just one of those players that because he hasn't been playing a lot for his club, he actually might play more for Canada because he'll want minutes and he'll want to go maybe all 3 games.
He's fit too.
Exactly.
He played too many games, didn't he, over the last couple of years? Probably needs a little bit of a...
Maybe a break isn't the worst thing in the world. So I think he'll be in there and playing a lot. Then you've got Kay, obviously. Atiba, I know that there's some news that seems to have come out recently that he might miss a game or be out for Besiktas' next game. So we'll see on him. We'll have to wait for an update there. I think with Atiba, he is one who, at the age he's at, he takes very careful care of his body, I think. And so if he's feeling something, maybe if it's even just minor, he will err on the side of caution, particularly maybe if there's World Cup games coming up. So I wouldn't, freak out too much about that, although I don't know the details on that injury at the minute. And then, I'd have no objections to Kone potentially coming in. I don't know what his status is in terms of his eligibility right now, if he's actually a Canadian citizen yet or not. So we'd have to find out on that front. But I think he's done well. He's a player who certainly could give you something different in central midfield. Doesn't look out of place playing in MLS, and obviously has the potential to grow further. So he's someone I think you'd like to bring into the group sooner rather than later, if he is potentially a player with other options as a dual national.
Ollie's saying Atiba takes careful care of his body, which is the exact opposite of what I do, which is strictly reckless and unkind care to my body. That's the only kind of care that I like to pursue.
Too many French DJs.
Too many French DJs is right. Yeah, I was waiting for that to come up. My ears are still ringing. This is from Nick_Seg_1 on Instagram. Excuse me, I'm going to say IG and Instagram one. On Instagram, can Alfonso be a part of the group just to celebrate? He doesn't need to play. Gareth, our king of the celebration, what say you?
Yeah, I haven't heard him be ruled out yet. Have you? I've heard no one from Bayern Munich or Canada Soccer say Alfonso Davies will not play this window. Until I hear that, I'm under the assumption that Canada Soccer will be trying their best to make sure that Davies can play some kind of role in this upcoming window. I'm sure there's plenty going on behind the scenes. There's plenty to sort out there. But again, the Canada squad will be announced at the end of last week. I just have the feeling that they'll fight tooth and nail until the last moment to see if they can get Fonzie into camp. When I hear something, I'll let you guys know. I haven't heard anything either way yet, but he absolutely has not been officially ruled out.
Charlie, a question from John Vandervelde. Do you see Canada having more problems without Alfonso this window than last? Their away games are against much better teams this time around.
I don't. And I actually don't think that this window is more difficult than the last one. I think the last one was the most difficult of the windows that they had, where you have to go down to both of those Central American countries and then play the US at home. This one's similar kind of travel schedule, but maybe slightly lighter in certain senses. Canada have shown time and again that they can play just fine without their best player, and I don't anticipate that really changing all that much this time around. So I wouldn't expect it to be a bigger problem this window, especially now that they've got that experience playing difficult games on the road and at home without him. So I don't know why this would be any different.
Ollie, how do you feel on this one?
The pressure's off now, right? Like, they're going to qualify, and they're probably going to qualify in that first game. And so you're not going into this window thinking that you need, looking at the schedule ahead and trying to calculate what you need and going all out for that 9-point window. And they don't need anywhere near the same kind of performance as they did in that last window. So whether you think this one's a bit more difficult or not, the demands are much lower. The pressure is much less. I think that there's no USA game, which I think was, is always a heavy weight when you're going and playing against your biggest rival. So there's just going to be, I think, a more freedom in the team to really go for it this window. And maybe that gets the best out of a few individuals. So I don't personally think they'll miss him more than they did in the last one. The last one for me, as Charlie said, was really difficult and the stakes were high, and the way they handled it without Alfonso was pretty unbelievable. So I'm not too concerned in that regard, but of course you'd love to have him back on the field.
Gareth, next question from Andrew Redding. Hi guys, do you rate Christian Gutierrez, and do you think he plays a role in the March camp?
Do I rate him? Yeah, of course I rate him, but I mean, this is a position of great depth and strength in this Canada team. He might be the fifth or sixth option in terms of the fullback wingback positions. It's not an indictment on the player. It's more about the other options that are available. So do I see him playing a role? I think he's kind of on the outside looking in, to be honest. That's kind of like he came in when Davies, I guess, couldn't go last window. So we'll see. He's one of those players who are on the cusp, like him and Zachary Broguillard. I feel like are players that are there involved, but they're not first choice in those positions. Like you have Lorea, Atakubi, Johnston can play there, Buchanan can play there. Like those are your first options, right or left side. So it's a good problem to have. And Gutierrez is going to have to continue to improve in order to, maintain, that position of at least being in consideration. I don't think he's got off to a great start to the year. I think he got COVID during last Canada camp and ruled himself out, but at least he was there. And he's going to be, somewhat part of the conversation.
This question from Andrew Croft was already addressed briefly. When is the squad announcement? Any potential surprise additions to the Canadian men's national team roster? Wheels, you mentioned, and correct me if I'm wrong, just recently that I heard correctly, that'll be expected around the end of next week, correct?
Thursday or Friday next week. Potential additions, maybe one or two. New player, like again, Piet won't play. Davies is up in the air. So there's a couple spots, but I don't think that other players that have been here over the duration of this qualifying are going to be pushed out in favor of new players coming in. That just won't happen. It's not the time. They need to qualify first, and that's the first mission. They have other missions. They want to remain undefeated. They want to be the first team to qualify from CONCACAF. There's a list of things that they want to accomplish. So winning these games is priority, not just, calling in random players to have that experience. That's not what this is about right now.
Do with this rumor what you will, but I know that Ian Hume still plays. I'm not saying he's going to play for Canada. He's done it before, is all I'm saying. That's all. Is there
a seniors team?
I'm not going to touch that one. I still have to share booth with him plenty of times. Actually, you
guess
do
he
too,
is the same age as Atiba, right? So
that is true.
And he's still playing.
I'm sure he loves to be reminded of that as well. Okay, Ollie, I can't wait anymore, so I'm going to tell you to get your present ready. Do you have to physically open the tape? What's the situation here? Do I have to vamp?
I haven't touched it yet, so I've got some scissors here.
Okay, so for everyone,
working on it?
Please go ahead.
Watch him struggle.
Yeah. So what this is once we started these digital shows for the most latest round, I gave Ollie some flack for drinking from a New England Patriots mug, who I believe he said belonged to his ex-girlfriend's parents or something. Is that what it was?
Don't know if I said that on air, Adam. Don't know if I said it on air, but
okay. Well, so we
Adam
can edit that out.
Bringing up conversations that happen off air.
Just
in
saying,
private, by the way.
It was on air, anyways. So the point is, Ollie needs a new mug. And I thought, out of the kindness of my heart, I should give him one that he can drink from and be proud to put on his set when he's not drinking from it. So this is me vamping to Phil. And here we go.
Got that open pretty quick.
All right, the big reveal.
Walking straight into a trap here. I can feel it with every bone in my body.
I hope it has your face on it. I hope it's an Ollie head.
I hope it has Adam's face on it.
It's like a specific mug box.
Nothing but the best for you, Ollie. This is the best content possible. Let's
fragile goods. It needs to be triple wrapped.
Well, I saw this half and thought, okay, that's quite nice. I can live with that.
There it is.
Jenkins' #1 fan.
Cheers, Ollie. Enjoy
what
that.
What do I do with this? What am I going to do with this?
It had to be with him wearing the red jacket as well.
Of course.
Brilliant. That's awesome.
What else would it be? Go ahead, Ollie.
I am a big fan of the jacket, so maybe we could just annotate it to Jenkins' jacket #1.
We'll get producer Armin to get a One Soccer shop page where you can buy your own Jenkins #1 fan One Soccer mug. Coming soon to OneSoccer.ca.
Flying off the
job,
shelf.
Adam.
If I was left-handed, it would be a nice
well
mug.
done.
Thank you, Adam.
You're very welcome, my friend. Let's move on now with that. The show is only going to go downhill from here, so I apologize in advance. But let's talk a little CPL action. And one of the big news today, Cameron Habibullah joining the Pacific Football Club on loan from Vancouver Whitecaps. That ties into our question, what CPL players are you interested in watching to start this season? So I guess, Charlie, I'll give you the opportunity for your reflection on Cam's loan announcement and some other players perhaps you're keeping an eye on.
Yeah, well, Cam Habibullah, I think it was rumored for a little bit, but it's official today. That's a really fun and exciting signing for Pacific. He's really, really young. He's already appeared 3 times in MLS, and he played for Canada at the Under-17 World Cup, and he was pretty good there. I think he started 2 of the group games, and he had an assist in the other one against Brazil. He's a good player. He's a talented attacking player. He's coming into a team with arguably already if not one of the best attacks in the CPL, if not the best. Defending champion. It's going to be a hard squad to, find your spot in, but he's a very talented player, and I think one that's very exciting. In terms of other players across the league that I'm particularly looking forward to this year, well, I mean, there's lots, but I think some of the ones I'm more interested in are maybe the players that didn't hit their stride last year that we know can be better. I think Joe Mason is one that would come to mind as a player that we all know has that incredible pedigree, really exciting. He showed moments of it last year, but I think he can be a Golden Boot contender this year, which would be fun. And I'm sure there's, a plethora of other players that are really exciting. Atletico Ottawa just signed a guy that played in La Liga and Serie A and Liga and Turkey. Like, that's exciting.
Yeah, the Abdul Sissoko thing is not going to be confusing for me whatsoever. So
Momo Sissoko's brother.
That's right.
Yeah.
That's definitely, well, you got him, and you've got Baloo Tabla, and you got all kinds of crazy things going on. Carl Howarth in Ottawa as well. It's looking really good.
Yeah.
Gareth, who are you keeping an eye on this year in the Canadian Premier League?
It's got to be Baloo Tabla, right? Like that's the guy. Reputation. You want to see if he can get it back on track. And look, in the Canadian Championship, it took 2 minutes for him to tear apart the Halifax Wanderers last year. Like, if that's a glimpse of what's to come, then look out. I think that Ottawa, it was a difficult season for so many reasons. Just their first kind of, I don't even count last season as a full season in the Canadian Premier League, but that was a year where you figured out what you had and what you need. And I think they needed a lot more attacking prowess, players with pace, players that can create. And it looks like that they've done that and brought that in. So I'm starting to think that Ottawa might be a team that has the potential to do some damage this year. I'm starting to like what I see.
Ollie, you know me, I love chaos and I am occasionally known for hyperbole, but I genuinely believe the top four, and then you add in Atletico Ottawa and Valor, there could be some massive upsets this season, considering some of the turnover and exciting changes we've seen this year.
We'll see. It's tough to bring, totally revamped squads together in the first season that they are together, right? Sometimes it takes a bit of time and a bit of trial and error to get the mixture right. But Gareth took my answer. I think Baloo Tabla is maybe the most interesting CPL signing we've ever had in this league. Like, that you have to remember, and I've got a feature coming out on him, so my mind is on him and maybe a bit more than others this week. But you've got to remember that this guy was like, it was him and Alfonso, right? Those were the two gems in the youth programs that everyone was talking about from the MLS academies. So clearly it's not worked out. There's a lot of different reasons that people will give as to why it hasn't worked out. I think Baloo himself has had a really hard time with injuries. 2 seasons in a row where he's had months, not weeks, spent on the sidelines due to injury. But then there's also been other things that have been going on. Wilfred Nancy left him out of a squad last season, even though he couldn't fill his bench with other players. He didn't have enough other players to fill the bench. Thierry Henry brought him on as a sub and took him off 15 minutes later. Like, there's things with the coaches where there's clearly been a bit of friction there as well. So he is, I think as interesting a player as we've ever had in this league. Massive talent, but he's 23 at the end of the month, and he's got to start putting it together pretty quickly here if he's going to still be a relevant player for the national team and where he wants to be in the future.
It wasn't that long ago where there was like angst towards Didier Drogba because he was tapping him up to play for Ivory Coast. Remember that? Like, that wasn't that long ago. Like, genuine Canadians. Well, Canadian soccer angers all over the place about everything. True. But like, this was one of the things that pissed off Canadian soccer fans. How can you get mad at Didier Drogba? I mean, come on. It's like one of the greatest strikers of all time and a likable guy too.
Yeah, absolutely. Ollie, great news. Just been told your feature is already published just now on onesoccer.ca. So ask and you shall receive. So you can open it in a new tab, read through it while you listen to us in the background, or go there after the show. onesoccer.ca, Ollie's feature on Baloo Tabla. Charlie, I'll ask you this on the Tabla conversation. Is this a real opportunity for the CPL if this goes well, for other players to be like, okay, I saw how Baloo Tabla's career has been revamped a little bit. I could do the same.
Yeah, I think so. It'll definitely be a mark of what the CPL can be for a player. I think there's already signs that it can be that kind of place that players can rejuvenate their career. Maybe not players who had the same kind of high profile tag as Baloo Tabla did, but there are plenty of players that maybe came from MLS academies, sort of fell by the wayside a little bit, came to the CPL and played professional minutes. And then now they've either established themselves here or they've gone elsewhere. But Baloo Tabla is, as the other guy said, a particularly interesting one. He had that massive projected ceiling. He was just such a hyped player at the time when he was really coming up in the Canadian youth programs. So if he does come into Ottawa and he plays to the best of his abilities and he shows at least glimpses of the player that we all wanted him to be, 5 even years ago, then I think it is a big, vote of confidence for the CPL and for Atletico Ottawa in particular as well, because they haven't necessarily had those kinds of stories yet, right? Of players that needed their career to have a bit of a boost. And then if they were to do that, then that would be maybe the biggest one yet. So I think there are a lot of eyes on Baloo Tabla this year from really all over the world, to be honest.
And one of the things, Charlie, that was interesting about the Baloo Tabla signing is the term that was latched on for this contract, which brings us into this question from Mitch Voss on Instagram, who says, "What is a reasonable transfer fee for a top CPL player? Also, tell me the CPL is here to stay." Let me take care of that one. The CPL is here to stay, Mitch. But the other part of the question, what is a reasonable transfer fee for a top CPL player? I think we would be remiss to act like we know the exact dollars and cents, but there's definitely some ballparks that have been seen out there. Ollie, Gareth, Charlie, the three of you were pretty plugged in. Any ideas for Mitch on a ballpark for what a reasonable transfer fee would be?
Well, I think Forge did really well on Borges, and he was, I think, 200,000 to $250,000, that kind of range. And that's been one of the challenges, I think, in terms of potentially selling to MLS clubs, is that these transfer fees hit the salary cap, and they're not insignificant, right, in terms of what that number can be. So I think Borges was the high end, and I don't think anyone else has got to that kind of level. I think most of them are more, around the 100,000, some a bit less than that, I think, in Joel Waterman's case, and one or two others. But yeah, it's low six figures that I think a top CPL player is generally kind of commanding at the moment.
Well, there you go, Mitch. Another question from Instagram. This one, Call Me Michael. Likelihood of Caden Chung and Lucas McNaughton, maybe this could be or Lucas McNaughton, getting called up for Nations League. Don't think we'll see them in the World Cup qualifiers. Wheels, what's your sense? Do you think Chung and McNaughton are getting closer to getting a call from John Herdman?
They need to get in and play regular minutes with their club team first.
You mean one TFC
I don't know,
like,
I just... These comments are regularly made. I don't get it. At all. Just allow them to go on and establish themselves in their club teams first, and then you go and perhaps get a chance. Unless you're some wonder kid. We brought up Kone because he's 19 years of age. Like Lucas McNaughton's 26, 27 now.
Just
Caden Chung is being around the Canadian youth national teams like he would be with the group right now if he was good enough. They're trying to make this next step in their career. The national team should not be something that's on their radar, nor do I think the players are close to being part of the national team radar as of right now. I mean, things can change, right? Things can change quickly, but as of right now, just get some minutes with TFC first.
We can be excited, but we can also be reasonable at the same time.
Yeah, they got to play. They got to play, but I also think we should bear in mind that, defenders in a lot of cases can mature a little bit later in their careers, right, than midfielders and forwards who maybe you see the talent a bit more when they're 19 or 20. So someone like Caden Chung, for example, I know McNaughton's a little bit older, but Chung I still see as a relatively young player for the position he's playing in. And I still think there's the potential there for growth, the potential for him to, if he can hold down a place for TFC, to potentially come into that national team picture. So it's a little while off yet. He needs a run of games in Toronto, and Gareth's right. That's all they need to be focusing on at this point. But I wouldn't totally rule out players like that either.
There is another question from Bubbly on Instagram that I'll get to in 1 second, but I'm gonna get rid of this one. Ollie, can you do me a favor and just read the comment on the screen, please? Oh, sorry, not this one. Sorry, Finn, we already had you. I messed it up.
Pacific or Elite?
Yeah, well, that's not the one I was trying to show you. It's gone now. It was just on the screen, and now it's gone. But basically, Masood said, "Here it is.
Drink out of the mug next show."
Read it, Ollie. Read it.
I'll consider it. I want to run it through my dishwasher first. Not going to lie.
Yes.
Let's hope, make sure.
Let's hope one side of it strips off in the in the wash, and then we'll consider it.
I don't care how many mugs I have to send you. There will always be one in your condo. Here's the question from Bubbly on Instagram. Does Canada's momentum get hurt for 2026 if they don't have any meaningful World Cup qualifiers to play for 3 years? How do host nations stay competitive? Gareth, what do you think?
Well, that's one of the important things with the Nations League right now. If the World Cup ends up going every 2 years, I can see not just Gold Cups, but other international competition. There's been long talk about, CONCACAF joining up with Common Bowl and having some South American, North American, Central American competition. There's plenty of friendlies, plenty of marquee games. The thing is, now that Canada has arrived and are on the radar, they're going to be able to get some games against countries that you would have never dreamed that they would have been able to get before, right? This is part of the process. So obviously World Cup qualifiers, the stakes raise. In a 48-team World Cup, though, I think that everyone's going to take a hit. Like 2026 is a 48 team World Cup. Like, what's that qualifying going to look like? The stakes are nowhere near as high, and poor teams are going to qualify for the World Cup inevitably. That's why I don't like this 48 team World Cup. But I still think there'll be some big games, but you won't experience anything like what we've experienced over this last year with the Canadian men's national team, right? Like this grind where every game matters. No, we won't have that, and I'll miss that. But now that more people have jumped on board, then I think that those other games involving players like Davies and David and Eustachio and Borjan, like they're going to be able to sell themselves, right?
Charlie, I'll get you to weigh on this as well, and I want you to give me your opinion on Gareth's suggestion of a potential CONCACAF CONMEBOL tournament. Is it true that the CPL office would tear itself apart if CONMEBOL had to play matches against Canada like the One Soccer office would?
Oh, it might. There might be some there might be some fighting. Yeah, I think that's a good question, and I do actually think that there's probably discussions to be had about, what does that time between the 2022 World Cup and 2026 World Cup look like for Canada, and the same for the United States and Mexico, because they will also not be playing those competitive World Cup qualifiers. So maybe the Gold Cups within that time frame take on a little bit more importance for those teams. But yeah, there is a difference between, I know that the idea that you can get these higher profile friendlies helps. There's a difference between even playing a friendly against Brazil versus playing a really high stakes, high pressure World Cup qualifier against, Honduras. I know that the quality in the teams is very different, but there's also a reverse difference in the pressure on those games. So it is something that I think Canada Soccer will be aware of, and they're going to understand that they have to make sure that these players are finding ways to be competitive and to stay competitive in that time, because they don't want to just go to that hosting World Cup and show up and play in the 48 team World Cup and get bounced in the group stage kind of pathetically. That's not what they want. If you're hosting World Cup games, you want to perform well, right? I think Ollie put his finger up. Do you have something to add?
No, sorry. I just wanted to weigh in when you were done on that one. I think it's an important question, and I think it's not so much about, getting ready for 2026 and being able to perform at that World Cup as it is kind of continuing to ensure the team is relevant and ensure the team doesn't lose this kind of momentum and audience that it's built up over the past couple of years. And they're going to have to figure out ways in which to do that. I'm sure, John Herdman is very good at that kind of thing in terms of setting goals and, targets for the team. And maybe they look at something like, well, let's win a Gold Cup, right? Like that would be a great objective to have and to really kind of build around. But it's going to require some creativity to create matches outside of the Gold Cup and the Nations League that actually matter, that people want to watch, that keeps this team in the conversation and that ensures we don't kind of just fade away and don't really hear from this team between 2022 and 2026.
Next question comes from Michael, and it says, how does FC Edmonton need to rebuild and get on the right track? I will say I just finished a sit down with every single CPL coach, and the one with Alan Koch is very, very interesting. So look for that on onesoccer.ca shortly. So I can weigh in after you guys have your
Adam, you should take that first. Yeah, you go first.
Right, let me put my analyst hat on here for 1 second. No more hosts. It's time for the pundit. No, it's Adam Ollie. It's Adam Ollie. Basically, look, the short answer is they need an owner, because until they have an owner, there's only so much they can do. So much about this year is giving young players an opportunity to have their shot at being a professional. But until they know who is going to be financing this team, marketing this team, and taking them to the next level that they deserve to be, then there's a lot of question marks. And one of the things I really liked from Alan in that interview is he was very blunt, and he said, look, there was probably a very short window, and I think he said a 5 to 10 seconds, that I asked myself, what am I doing here? Because I just went through a year of rebuild and now he's being asked to do it all over again. But he stressed how excited he was about the project, and the reason why Edmonton could succeed along with their history is simply the fact that they have that legacy in the Canadian soccer landscape, and there's optimism there. So look, there's no short answer until they have an owner. They're going to have a lot of loan players in. It's going to be interesting when they play York United, because they'll have 3 or 4 of them who aren't allowed to play, and that'll take away from the roster. But there's no doubt it's going to be a challenging year. So it's going to be a survive and do your best, try and take steps forward, but there's going to be question marks until there's a new ownership group. Let me bounce this one to Wheels. John again asks, what are reasonable expectations for them this year?
I have no idea until I see what their squad looks like, to be brutally honest with you. I just wanted to build off what you said about the ownership. I think the fans play a massive role in the city. They need to show up and support this team. Like, it's a great sports town. I love the city of Edmonton. There's great soccer people. We spent a week there where it was a scene for the Canadian men's national team. The problem was sandwiched in between, there was an FC Edmonton game. Yeah, it meant nothing, and there was no one there. Like, I get that there's frustration. I get that there might be a lack of awareness, but in other markets, the fans have like cultivated this atmosphere of excitement where you want to be part of it. So I do think that the fans play a role. If you care about this club, if you care about professional Canadian soccer, people need to dig deep and get out there, and you support the team and support the players regardless of the situation. I think that's going to play a key role in whatever atmosphere is cultivated. It's not easy. And I hope that they rally around the fact that, yeah, you know what? It's us against the world. I hope that we see that. As much as what happens on the field this season, I think what happens off the field might even be more important to the long term. I get it. Clark Field is a poor venue. I understand it, but you can watch games at a crap venue where the fans get together and create a positive atmosphere. Like, there's little things that can be done by supporters groups, by the fans, by the club as well, to make it that much more enjoyable. It doesn't need to be the best venue ever. You just need to add that, some elements where there's a togetherness, there's some kind of atmosphere for 2 hours, once or twice a week. That's all that the ask is. And I don't think that's unreasonable.
The other thing too. Sorry, go ahead, Ollie.
I think just weigh in on that, though, like, if you're going to ask supporters to do that, you also have to offer them something back. And that's where I think FC Edmonton have not done a enough job, to be quite frank, over the past.
No one's arguing with that. No one's arguing with that. That's true.
Right. But I think you've just got to, be clear on that, though, is that a place like Halifax is that it's not an accident that all those people turn up to watch that team. That's something that's been built there because the club and the ownership group plays a real role in that community, and they give back to that community in a way that creates that connection. And I just don't think that's happened in Edmonton. And it's point number one for me for any new ownership group that comes in.
There we go. Charlie, I'll get you to weigh in too, but to answer John's question directly from Alan, and I'm quoting him, there are no expectations, 0 expectations this season. It's going to be
0. You have 0 expectations. Wow.
That is what Alan said. And you can read more, review more when we get that feature on onesoccer.ca. But just because there's no expectations, Charlie, doesn't mean that they're not motivated to prove people wrong. And look, for a lot of these guys, there's only 2 returning players. It's T-Boy and it's Darlington that are coming back. Everyone else, if they're not loaned, this is their chance to be a professional footballer. And look, I try not to make too many of these parallels, but I think of the Arizona Coyotes and their situation next year, where they're going into an interesting stadium situation. They're going into a situation where players are like, this, it's not a high necessarily draw right now. It's a project for the future, but it's an opportunity for these young players to be pros and to prove some people wrong and get an opportunity.
Yeah, it absolutely is. I think it is an interesting kind of dynamic in terms of what the squad will look like. I think we've spoken about it before, that this idea that they could be this kind of chip on their shoulder, sort of island of misfit toys, for lack of a better phrase, of players that have been passed over or maybe played on the bench at other teams, and they're looking for that opportunity to get more minutes and to actually kind of show themselves. It'll be interesting for those players individually to see what they can do at the CPL level, and they're going to get those opportunities. As Adam said, there are no expectations for this team, so every success and every good moment they have is, that's amazing. That's fantastic. So I think that there will be, there's not as much pressure on the team this coming year to win necessarily, because they're trying to build something, which is going to take a long time, I think.
One of my favorite movies of all time is Major League. Like when Cleveland, just had no fans, they wanted to move the team out of the city, but then they won. Just a bunch of these ragtag players that couldn't find a home anywhere else. Like, who's going to be the Willie Mays Hayes here? Who's going to be the Jake Rip Taylor? Like this is what we need here. Like, right. And there's something cool about that. I think that it could be like the hipster team this season of the Canadian Premier League. And I say hipster, not in a bad way, but a positive way.
The good kind of hipster, as opposed to those darn bad hipsters.
Yes.
Here's a question that I'm sure will fuel no debate whatsoever or any controversy from Tyler Rosenoff. Does Montreal need to go back on the rebrand? Some supporters have been alienated from the team, and it is shown in our low Champions League attendance. Tyler adds, in past Champions League appearances, Montreal has gotten historically their best fan turnout, see 2008 and 2015. There's no avoiding the fact that you go on Twitter most of the time, especially when things aren't going well, and the comments are usually just bring back the impact.
Jesus Christ.
I think
95% of the comments on Twitter should just be called complain. That's what it is. It's complain. Don't use that. Like, honestly, Tyler, this is a question that only the market can answer. I can't answer. I'm not in Montreal right now. For me, when a club, if you want to hang on to what the impact was in different iterations of the team, all the way through, like, bring back the Supra. Like, everyone's going to have like different collective memories of professional football in your city. Ollie supports a team, MK Dons. Like, they haven't always been MK Dons. Like, how do you feel about rebrands, right?
Careful.
But that's the thing. Like, it's something that I think it's just intimate to people that live in their city and their affiliation to that brand. Again, if you support football in your city, whether it's CM Montreal, I don't know. I don't know how much of a difference that it should make, but that's just me.
Yeah.
Oh, you don't want to respond to the knife twisting from Gareth Wheeler there.
They were two different teams, I think, in most people's estimation. But we won't get into that. I'm with Wheels. Like, I wouldn't want to tell anyone in Montreal how they should feel about what they think the name should be or the brand should be or whatever. I personally tend to think that what's more important is, again, as we were just talking about there, like the way the club acts, right? Like what they do for the supporters, the way they engage them, the way they make them feel valued, and kind of, what they offer to them in terms of a great experience, or, being part of that club and so on and so forth. I tend to think that's more important than the name or the logo or the kit or anything else. But I understand at the same time that people feel attached to a name that has that kind of history with it. And again, I don't want to be the one to tell them they're wrong on that front.
I've always thought too, look, it's important to a lot of people, and that's why we have so many incredible supporters that live, breathe, and die by their clubs. So things like that are important. You want to call them the Impact, call them the Impact. Wear your Impact shirts if you want, but they're still your team. They're still your city's team, and maybe that's how you show the ownership that you disagree with the rebrand. But at the end of the day, they are your team. From John, what do you think of Jacek Skublak with Guelph United going against his former team in the Canadian Championship? Charlie O'Connor-Clark, of all the storylines, we're getting some Skublak in here.
So excited. I am excited for that game, especially because the idea of a CPL team going to a League One Ontario ground on the road is a lot of fun, and it feels like some classic cup shenanigans for the CPL hasn't played that role of being the bigger team going to the smaller club's venue yet, which is going to be interesting. And Skublak in particular, I enjoyed him in the first year. I thought he was an okay player, and I was kind of surprised he didn't get another chance with another CPL team. So I'm glad that he's landed in Guelph. I'm glad that he's found a bit of a home there, at least for now. And I think that he'll be very, very hungry to show what he can do. I think it'll be a pretty good game. I know that you guys have spoken about it already, but Guelph aren't just going to sit there and take it in this game. They're a pretty good team in League One Ontario, so I'm excited for that.
You cannot lose in this situation where you either get the Wanderers hosting TFC or you get Toronto FC going to the University of Guelph and playing at Alumni Field with the checkered board end zones. Like you cannot lose in this situation. It's something that I'm personally looking forward to. Here's a question from Finn G. I'll give it right back to Charlie. Anything about 2022 jerseys? I can't wait till these teams start to create some special atmospheres. They are coming very, very soon, Charlie, but do you have any more details for Finn?
I'm not sure how much more I can say, but yeah, they are coming very, very soon.
Oh, you've seen them?
I
got a sneak peek.
I don't know.
Just say yes. You don't have to tell us what they look like.
I've seen a couple. I will say they look great.
Wow.
Yeah, Charlie, it's
Ollie,
actually
have you seen them, Ollie? Am I the only one
No.
that hasn't seen them at all?
I know I'm with you in the dark, Wheels. We don't get
Okay.
this kind of exclusive insider access.
Don't
if
have
if
access.
Charlie were to just
Uh.
open up his closet in the background, it would just be
Yeah.
all the jerseys on individual hangers.
This
So
is
we
the
got to make
CPL's
sure.
main store cupboard. Yeah, this is where they all.
That's exactly right. Back to Instagram. This one from Alex K. Smith 2. G'day, Alec. Are there any injury updates on Forge FC's backline like Kurtzen and Jakovic? I don't believe that Dayon is still with the club, but Daniel Kurtzen is training and looking to come back. Is there anything you know from that one on DK, Ollie?
No, I don't have any kind of recent update. I know when he got the injury at the time last year, it was considered a fairly serious one that would keep him out for months rather than weeks, but I haven't checked in on that one lately, so don't know anything newer than that.
Fortunately, can't give you any more on that one, but we appreciate the question nevertheless. Back to Andrew Redding. Any update on when the men's U20 camp will be? Where do you see the bulk of the players coming from for this camp? Ooh, good question. European Academy, CPL, MLS, etc. Gareth.
I thought I answered this last week. Like, my focus is on the men's national team right now. Under 20 is just kind of on the back burner for me. To be honest, I'm not really sure. I'm kind of, rather than this camp, I'm kind of more focused on what that team will look like in June. And I've heard some names thrown around for that. I'm not going to share right now because I still think that they're sorting that out. But I believe the camp's upcoming either at the end of March or early April, I believe. But if you're playing for a CPL club or an MLS club and you're an under 20 player, how many of these teams are going to be willing to let potentially important players go off and play for the under 20s? So it's not easy. Not every team wants to allow that to be the case.
Absolutely. This one from Tiago. Is there a specific reason on why this year's Canadian Championship is only one-legged matches?
Because it's better.
And are there any plans to change back to two-legged matches? Ollie has a massive opinion on this, clearly, so I'll let you address this one.
I hope there aren't any plans to change it back. I just think it's better. It's more entertaining. It's what cup football is. Cup football at its best, right? Like I know there are some countries around the world that go two legs. For me, maybe it's just personal preference, but I've always seen one leg as more exciting, more chance for upsets. Just these one-off matches that mean a lot to the teams that are playing in them. I wouldn't change a thing about it. I much prefer the one legs.
Charlie, this is not so much a question as it is a comment from Cryptic, who asks, who says there is no excuse for the Whitecaps to not make the finals of the Canadian Championship. Do you agree with that?
There's always an excuse.
Well, I'm sure that there can be an excuse if they need one. They need to beat a CPL team first, and that's something that they've never done. Like they're gonna host Valor, which is gonna be another fun game. Last time Phil Dos Santos was at BC Place, he was an assistant coach for the same Whitecaps team that lost to Pacific, yep. And then him and his brother got fired by that team. So there's a lot of storyline in that game. I understand the idea that Vancouver is on a side of the bracket where they won't face an MLS team theoretically until the final. And yes, you look at that, you're like, okay, this is our year. This is the year that we should be winning this competition. But I'm not going to say that until I see it. They have not shown in the past few editions of this tournament that they're equipped for that cup run.
Oliver Platt. I guess there's a question from me first. From the One Soccer admin on Instagram, Adam, when are we playing FIFA? Do I get a mug when I win? Whenever you want, when I get a PlayStation 2. And yes, you'll get a mug, but it'll be even more of my face on it that says champion. Yeah, that's exactly right, Ollie. You're welcome again. Ollie, here's a fun Vancouver Whitecaps Valor question for you. If the Gutierrez twins just switch kits, do you think anyone would be able to tell the difference of who is actually playing for who?
One's right-footed, one's left-footed, so that would be the only giveaway, I think. Other than that, they might be pretty much interchangeable. I'm excited for that. I think they're two players they're both good players, but they've also got a bit of an edge about them. We've seen Diego Gutierrez in the CPL going for a few tasty challenges, so I'm hoping they'll both be on the same wing. Christian on the left and Diego maybe playing on the right for that game. So that would be a matchup I'd be looking forward to seeing.
It's like 1980s WWF wrestling where like the twins like change spots.
I'm not saying
That's
it should
amazing.
happen, but if
that's
it
great.
did, I'd be here for it. And sorry,
Wow.
one more thing. I'm going to bring this one back. One more thing for everyone in the chat who's actually interested in this. I was joking yesterday when I tweeted about the San Jose Barracuda Twitter account doing that. But if there are people who actually want to do this, we have no problem trying to arrange it. So just let me know in the comments if you're a PlayStation or an Xbox player so I can try and facilitate this somehow. But Armin, I saw your message. It's been seen. There was a question here from David Guy for 2023. If the winner of the Voyageurs Cup has already qualified for Champions League through MLS or the League's Cup, who gets the slot? That is an interesting question from David. One that I don't know the answer to. I don't know that.
Team
I was
qualify
about to say
through
I don't
MLS?
think they can qualify through Major League Soccer. So
I think.
I think that's a change. I think they
Yeah, I
can.
think that's
do it.
changed.
That's a change.
Yeah.
Yeah.
this is
Thank
why it's a
God.
great question from David. So Wheels, what was that change? Sorry. I don't know if you know everything.
That Canadian teams can now qualify through the league, so we can have upwards of 3 Canadian teams qualify for the Champions League and the expanded version that's upcoming.
Fantastic. Here's a question for this is from Cryptic. Sebastian Berhalter was getting boos from fans because of Greg at the Whitecaps home opener when he was coming off the pitch. Thought, Ollie. I'd missed this one. It's hilarious to me, but did you see this?
I did not see that. Sorry, I was just reading that question.
Please, if there's videos of
mean,
it, please link it in the comments. I'd be happy to see this.
That's that's kind of amusing just because of the USA-Canada rivalry. I hope the Whitecaps fans warm up to Sebastian though, because I'm sure he's a decent player and deserves their support. But I did not see that.
Okay, and we have
support your team, support your players. Like
of all the things for Whitecaps,
the U.S.
fans
just
to be doing.
lost to Canada. Like it's just I don't know. Support the kid. He's a young player. You want to make sure that he feels at home.
And I think we can also safely say we all love our parents, but at the same time, I would probably laugh at that if someone booed me because of my dad. I just think it was funny. Vincent Alvarado, question regarding expansion in the CPL. How do you guys feel about Electric City FC and what they've been doing? Ollie has a great feature if you haven't read it yet on onesoccer.ca. Do you feel it's substantial and their CPL hopes are legit, or are they a potential flash in the pan like 1812 FC? I think 1812 FC and ECFC are very different situations. I think Simcoe County Rovers came in and gave 1812 FC no choice but to fold. I also think they're on the CPL's radar as well, especially with the ownership group that they have. Ollie, you wrote the feature on Electric City. If you have anything you want to add to Vincent's question.
Yeah, I don't think it's flash in the pan. Whether it works out in terms of CPL expansion, we'll have to wait and see. But I think in terms of... Oh, are we losing everyone?
Wheels was frozen and laughing maniacally in the background.
Just Wheels. You all right?
Are you okay, Gareth?
Everything's okay. Everything went robotic. Everything was spinning. I don't know what was happening. So, anyways, go ahead. Maybe it was just me.
Sorry, please carry on. I love these roundtables.
Electric City. I don't think it's flash in the pan. I think it's that there's some substance there from. In my experience from talking to the people involved in that club, there's a president in Rob Jenkins who was working at Cavalry. He's experienced in Canadian soccer, knows what he's doing. They put an ownership together. They have an investment group that's working on a facility, training ground and stadium. They're signing real players, professional players as well to play in League One Ontario. So as I said, in terms of can they become an expansion team in 2023 or at all, we'll have to wait and see what happens, right? In terms of the response in Peterborough to this team and the kind of crowds that they can attract in League One Ontario and how that propels them potentially onto the professional game in the future. But when you're looking at across the country for semi-pro teams and teams that could be candidates for the CPL, I think they're top of the list.
I will always give the Electric City questions to Ollie just so I can hear him say Peterborough because it will never not.
How am I saying it wrong?
You're not saying it wrong. It's humorous to me. That's all. It's like if someone would be like Toronto instead of Toronto.
I would say it. How would you say it for me?
How would I say Peterborough? Peterborough.
Oh, okay. So I would say Peterborough naturally and just squish it. But I was under the impression that here in Canada you kind of say all the all the sounds.
Yeah.
We pick and choose.
Edinburgh.
In the chat,
How you
Peterborough
do?
or Peterborough? Let us know where you weigh in. Again from
Bruh.
Vincent, I'll give it to Charlie. Vancouver claims to want to be Athletic Bilbao, yet they keep signing American domestics and now have brought in Cody Cropper on trial.
Cody Cropper. That's a throw.
Cody Cropper.
That's a great
In what
name.
sense do Vancouver claim to want to be Athletic Bilbao?
Yeah, I've
That's
never.
we're gonna
news
need
to
some more
me.
from Vincent
And
on
what
this one.
what does that mean?
To be, I think to defend Vince, I think
All
that,
people from the mainland.
I think Axel Schuster said that, didn't he?
Did
Did
he?
he? I missed that. I missed
may be
that.
wrong.
I don't know.
I think he's
The
made
one
that
thing,
comparison.
I do know about like Vancouver's model, like they have academies set up everywhere across this country, like because they don't have an area like territorial rights like Montreal and Toronto. Like they're casting a wide net. So with that Atletico Bilbao approach, if that means Canadian players, then okay, but it's not just like Atletico Bilbao is just a very specific region in Spain. Like that's like saying we're only going to, bring in players from the lower mainland. Like it's just not the case. So perhaps he misspoke. That's what.
And okay, to be fair, with the question being about why are they signing American domestics, because every MLS team has to do that.
Yeah.
Right. Like the way that the league is set up, you want players that have MLS experience, that know how to play in the league. The vast majority of players who fall under that tag are going to be American, because most MLS teams, especially in the US, are vastly constructed of American domestic players. So I think that's just because of that's the way that.
Where are Vancouver's best players from, Charlie? Scotland.
Their best players from Scotland.
Brian White, is he from New York? Like, I mean, come on. Like, I don't
Cody
know.
Cropper's
Cavaliers from like
ex-MJ Dons, by the way.
Mississauga.
So Bone 6000, the only one coming to Ollie's defense right now, saying I'm saying it wrong. Ollie is
Thank
right.
you.
Bone, if you're gonna come at me, just know I'm coming
Pizza
right
Bro.
back. Spell Ollie's name
That's how you
right.
say it.
If you're going to agree with Ollie,
Peter Bro.
David, that's right. Thank you, Scorpio Canuck. Maybe Ollie can use his Rob Jenkins
that
connection.
Is awesome.
He can address One Soccer and say, "This is how you say the name."
That's
of the
correct.
definitively, once and for all. Peterborough, yeah,
Peter
Peterborough.
Bro.
Peterborough. Maybe it's just a regional small town hick dialect that I picked up in my youth here in Trenton, Ontario, but I digress. All right, ladies and gentlemen, thank you for hanging out with us today. I will raise a mug of cheers to you. This is Ollie's cue to do the same thing with my face on the start of it. Come on. There. Oh, boo. Can you get a recall from Vistaprint?
Charlie, we're left out. I'm just going to chug my straight vodka here.
Hang on.
You should.
Five alarm interruption from Joshua Cloak. Question for Wheeler: should I do double pineapple pizza tonight, or double pineapple on the pizza tonight, or triple? There's only two options here.
If you're going to make the mistake of going pineapple, why not triple your mistake? Be wrong 3 times. Just don't be wrong.
Go big or go home.
Go big or go home. Exactly.
Cryptic hot drink of choice, coffee is the only answer. All of it, all the time. Thank you, everyone.
He's woke.
He's woke Cloak, and he does not like that nickname. That'll be all the time we have on this One Soccer Roundtable. Thank you all for hanging out with us. As always, we appreciate you. We love the engagement. Wheeler actually loves these Friday shows. He just puts on the curmudgeon act at the beginning, but he loves hearing your thoughts and the same questions about who's going to make Canada, which guy from Peterborough, Ontario is going to make Canada next. That's it for us today. Thank you to Armin Kyle behind the scenes. We'll see you on Monday for another episode of One Soccer Today. Have a great weekend.